Hey Canucks fans, would you be excited for an all-Canadian division in the NHL? I'm Clay Emo, I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter. I'm at Clay Emo on Instagram. I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club. This is my Canucks take all in one take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Friday, October the 16th. This is where you get Canucks insight that's positive and timely. We've been hearing rumblings about this all-Canadian division in the National Hockey League for a few weeks, even a few months now. Ever since the pandemic started back in March, and then borders were closed to non-essential travel, and then the NHL starting up again, and analysts here or there would bring up the fact that wouldn't this make sense to have an all-Canadian division? So this isn't brand new news to anyone, but the Vegas Golden Knights owner Bill Foley mentioned it during an interview earlier this week, so it's got a lot of people talking. And I remember, you may remember that I posted, it wasn't my graphic, it was a graphic from TSN. It was around leading up to draft time. There's a question is, which Canadian team will end Canada's drought since 1993 of no Stanley Cup winners? Yeah, the poll question on TSN, and I tweeted this out September 23rd. It had over 1,500 likes on this photo, not because it's me, 1,200 likes, but because of the result. It says, which team will end Canada's drought? And at that time, it was the Canucks at 31%, Montreal 19%, Edmonton 18%, Toronto 16%, then Ottawa 6, Winnipeg 6, Calgary 4. So Vancouver way ahead at 31, Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Calgary way below at 4 to 6%. And then Toronto, Edmonton, and Montreal basically bunched up between 16 and 19%. And remember, this poll question was, which team will end Canada's Cup drought? It wasn't which team would fare the best in an all-Canadian division. In fact, I saw an article on TSN yesterday that says, out of all 7 teams, Vancouver had the worst record when it came to playing against within the Canadian teams last season, which is kind of interesting. That's because we know we can't beat Winnipeg. We struggled against Toronto, split against, actually I think we lost to Montreal too. So then we split against Edmonton and Calgary, but that was last season. So interesting to think that about 3 weeks ago, the poll question, it was voted on by fans on TSN, said the Canucks had the best chance of winning, ending the Stanley Cup drought for Canada. And again, this does not simply mean who's going to do best in the all-Canadian division, but it at least gives you a sense of where hockey fans are at, or maybe just everyone from Vancouver flooded that poll and made the Canucks win that poll, whatever. And then also a couple other caveats, logistical things. We don't know if an all-Canadian division means you play the entire season against only the 6 other Canadian teams. So in a 40 or 50 game season, that means you have to play each team 8 or 9 times. That seems like a lot, actually. So, or we don't know if they're going to start off by playing against the Canadian teams only. That way they don't have to cross the border. Maybe you play them 4 or 5 times, get you all the way to March or April, and then figure out what happens for the rest of the year. That's another thing. So we don't know, right? It's all speculation right now. We don't know if the Canadian division will last, like I said, the entire season next year, even if it's abridged. And if so, even that, will the Canadian teams play against other American teams? Will they even be allowed to do that? And then, when you think about it from a logistical standpoint, it makes sense. There's 31 teams in the NHL. Seattle's not in the NHL next season. So you can have the 7 Canadian teams, and then it nicely divides the remaining 24 teams up into 3 divisions of 8, likely middle of the country to west. So all the California teams, Arizona, Vegas, they can all be in one, Texas. And then you can have all the teams in the northeastern part of the states. I've talked about this before. There's 8 teams up there, including the New Yorks and the Washingtons and the Phillies and Pittsburghs all up there. And then you can have the whole kind of East Coast down to Florida as a 4th division. So the numbers work out well. 7 in Canada, then 8 for the 24 American cities. Okay, let's talk about the actual who would do well in this Canadian division. When you look at, so I'm going to build off that TSN poll that was taken in September before free agency started and the draft. But when you look at what's happened over the past week or so in free agency, I think there's no denying that Montreal, Calgary, and Toronto have likely been the more active teams. And then I'd put Vancouver and Edmonton in the next tier of activity, and then Winnipeg and Ottawa after that. Ottawa mostly because they're building from the ground up basically with their drafting and such. And Winnipeg, they haven't done a lot. They're kind of hamstrung because of their salary cap situation, including Patrick Laine. So I have noticed that Winnipeg and Ottawa haven't really made a lot of moves yet, just kind of little pieces here and there. Vancouver and Edmonton, they're like the next tier so far. Edmonton has made a few small moves. But the biggest one would be obviously signing Tyson Barrie to play on, in their on their blue line. Just a 1-year deal, but still that is an exciting move for them, and gives them a lot of mobility on the back end. And of course, they haven't made any changes bringing back the same goaltenders. Tyler Ennis is in there too, but not a lot of massive changes that have really moved the needle for Edmonton. But then they already have, of course, the two of the best players, if not the two best players in the league. Well, Nathan McKinnon might have something to say about that, but in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So Edmonton is good, and they're still good. And I think they finished at the top of the Canadian teams in the standings last season, even though it was very tight. Vancouver, we know so far, gone are Markstrom, Tanev, Toffoli, Stetcher, in are Holtby and Nate Schmidt. So some would say that's a bit of a downgrade. We know that the offseason isn't over yet, but that goes for every single team. So I don't think the Canucks have fallen too far off. And then up top, the three teams that have been, I think Montreal has been the most active and the most impressive when you think that they signed Jake Allen, Joel Edmondson. So you got Jake Allen as a backup to Carey Price. Going to be important to have good backup in a shortened season, truncated season. You have Joel Edmondson to beef up the blue line, give Shea Weber some help. And especially up front, they've done a lot to bolster their forward ranks, especially on the wings, in Josh Anderson, in Tyler Toffoli, in re-signing Brendan Gallagher. So there's a lot that the Montreal Canadiens have done. I'd say Toronto has done quite a bit, maybe not as big as say Montreal has been, but they obviously TJ Brody's a big one, and then Wayne Simmons, and they're bringing Zach Bogosian in there. So the Toronto's done quite a few things as well, maybe not as big as Montreal. And then Calgary, we already know that they've taken three of the Canucks in Markstrom, in Tanev, and in Louis Domingue, who won't be as much of a difference maker. But we know that Calgary has proven, and not just those two guys, you look at their roster, they've been very active for the past 2 or 3 weeks. So all to say, what does it mean in terms of who's going to be the best Canadian team? Well, obviously I'm biased because I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. I'm the founder of the GLCPC. But it's been fascinating to hear people on the radio. You have guys like Pierre LeBrun saying that the Canucks are still the best team in Canada because he doesn't think they've had that much of a drop-off in the offseason. He thinks Montreal's getting there, but they're not there yet. Whereas a guy like, so that was Pierre LeBrun, where a guy like Craig Button has already said, no, now Montreal is now the team to beat in Canada. So obviously Montreal fans will be very excited what the Canadiens have done, and I think they're much more exciting team to watch now for sure. And then of course, being here in Vancouver, I don't see that the drop off is that bad, truly, between last year and this year, and those contracts, especially to Markstrom and Tanev, as I've talked about many times. You know, those are simply contracts that the Canucks cannot afford to sign. And I'm glad that they didn't. Okay, so what does it mean when it comes to a Canadian division next year? And would you use the same argument as who's going to be in the next Canadian team to win the Cup? Well, I guess you could put them together if you're thinking that obviously any team has a chance to win the Stanley Cup, and the better you do in your division, the better you might do in the playoffs, and the better you might have a chance to win the Cup. So having said all of that, I would still put Vancouver at the top. But it's, gosh, as I say this out loud, is it a 5-horse race between Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Montreal, and Toronto? I'd say Winnipeg just a tiny bit below them, even though they got really good goaltending and a lot of really good forwards. They don't have anything much on D. And I'd definitely say Ottawa's at number 7, Winnipeg's at number 6. But I you don't want me to sit here waffling for the next minute. If I had to do an order of the Canadian teams, man, I don't know. I still like the fact that Pettersson and Hughes are gonna be better next year. Obviously, while everyone is gonna get a year older. Miller, Besser, Demko, Horvat. I'm still going to put Vancouver at number 1. And anyone that's a non-Canucks fan, you can just go to town on me in the comment section. I'm a big boy. I can take it. So I'm going to go Vancouver number 1. And if Carey Price plays well, I'm going to say, this is going to be fun. I'm going to say it's going to go Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton. And I know Edmonton fans are going to say, what? How can you give a team that has McDavid and Draisaitl, how can you rank them 5 out of 7? I didn't say you're going to be a bad team, but if I had to rank these teams against each other, and I think any of those 5 teams could go any way, and you can make an argument for any of those 5 teams. But if I have to pick one for the sake of actually taking a stand, I'm going to go Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa. Again, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa. There we go. Canucks fans, let me know what you think. NHL fans, let me know what you think. I'm ready to get rocked in these comments, but that's okay. I read all your comments. I might not get a chance to reply to all of them, but I do read all of them, and I appreciate you taking the time to leave it. So what do you think of my order? Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa. There's my order. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. I will read, react, and reply as I can. Subscribe if you like to. Like this video if you like to. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. God bless, and go Canucks go.